Have you ever felt like your world flipped in the blink of an eye? One moment, everything is calm, like a quiet lake at dawn, and the next, you're caught in a storm you never saw coming. Life has a way of pulling the rug out from under us when we least expect it. And that's not a flaw in the system, that is the system. Growth doesn't arrive with a polite knock. It storms in unannounced, testing the limits of our patience, our emotions, and our inner peace. So the real question isn't how do I avoid the chaos? It's this: can I remain calm when everything around me is falling apart? The answer, and it's a powerful one, is yes. Calmness isn't reserved for monks in mountaintop temples or ancient philosophers in stone courtyards. It's a skill, a mental muscle, a daily practice. And like any skill, it can be learned, trained, and strengthened over time, starting with how we choose to respond to what life throws at us. As the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let that sink in. It's not what happens to us that defines our lives, it's how we respond. Stoicism, the ancient philosophy that shaped the minds of some of history's wisest thinkers, teaches us this simple yet profound truth: tranquility doesn't come from controlling the world around you. It comes from mastering the world within you. In this video, we'll explore how to train your mind, not in theory, but in practice, to stay grounded, even in the most chaotic situations. Because life isn't about avoiding hard times. It's about meeting them with strength, clarity, and composure. And it all starts with one fundamental choice. Chapter 1, Control your mind, or let it control you. Have you ever felt like your own mind was working against you? You're not alone. Most people have experienced moments when their thoughts spiral out of control, when negative emotions erupt like sudden storms, and we say or do things we regret almost immediately afterward. In those moments, it feels as if we've lost the steering wheel of our own lives. But here's the truth: the mind is a powerful tool, and if you don't learn to guide it, it will guide you. Picture this: you're at a party, relaxed, enjoying the moment, laughing with friends. The atmosphere is light, the music familiar. Then, out of nowhere, someone makes a cutting remark about you, maybe a snide joke, maybe a pointed criticism, loud enough for others to hear. Instantly, your heart skips. You feel your face flush. A surge of offense and embarrassment rises like a wave. You want to clap back. You want to walk out. You want to do something. Anything. But pause. Just for a second. Ask yourself, is this really you reacting, or is it your untrained mind taking the wheel? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." In other words, it's not what was said that causes the pain, it's what you believe it means. If you see that comment as a personal attack, it wounds you. But if you view it as just another passing opinion, maybe even a reflection of the speaker's own insecurities, it loses its power. Stoicism doesn't tell us to pretend we're emotionless robots. It teaches us to understand our emotions without letting them dominate our behavior. To feel anger without becoming angry. To notice pain without being ruled by it. And here's where the training begins. Practice, the party scenario revisited. Let's go back to that moment, the sting of someone's words hanging in the air. But now, imagine this time you've been practicing mental discipline. You take a breath. You don't immediately react. You don't try to win the room back. You simply look at the person with calm awareness. No glare. No challenge. Just stillness. You remind yourself, their opinion does not define my worth. Maybe you respond calmly. Maybe you don't respond at all. Either way, your stillness becomes more powerful than any comeback. Your silence speaks volumes. And here's the interesting part: when people expect an emotional reaction and don't get one, it rattles them. They came looking for drama. They found a mirror. That's the power of a trained mind. Everyday training grounds. Training your mind isn't something that happens only during life-altering moments. It starts with the small things, the everyday challenges that test your patience. When someone cuts you off in traffic, can you choose composure instead of rage? When a coworker speaks harshly, can you pause before replying? When your plans fall apart, can you adjust with grace instead of frustration? Each of these moments is a rep in the mental gym, and every time you choose stillness over reaction, awareness over impulse, you grow stronger. Remember, your thoughts are not facts. Your emotions are not commands. And your reactions, they are your choice. Coming next, in the next section, we'll go deeper into the habits and daily practices that can turn this calm mindset into second nature. We'll explore how journaling, reflection, and moment-to-moment mindfulness can reshape the way you think, and how small, consistent effort leads to profound change. Because calmness isn't a distant destination, it's a daily decision. Earlier, we explored how controlling the mind doesn't mean suppressing our emotions, it means learning to respond, not react. It's the difference between letting life toss you around like a leaf in the wind, and learning how to hold your ground, even during a storm. That clarity brings us to an even deeper insight. 2. Anger doesn't solve problems, it makes them worse. Learning to control your mind is not about becoming numb or emotionless. Quite the opposite, it allows you to experience life more freely, more consciously, and with less regret. When you're not ruled by knee-jerk reactions, you're no longer a prisoner of your emotions. You gain the rare ability to choose how you feel, how you respond, and, ultimately, how you live. Because make no mistake, if you don't take the lead, your mind will. And when that happens, it's not long before emotions like anger start calling the shots. Anger is one of the most natural human reactions. It shows up quickly, powerfully, and often without warning. In some cases, it can feel like a way of reclaiming control, by yelling, resisting, lashing out, or simply venting. But more often than not, anger doesn't fix the problem, it escalates it. Imagine this common scenario. You're driving on a packed highway one morning. It's early. You're focused, keeping a safe distance, flowing with the traffic. Then suddenly, another car swerves in front of you, cutting you off with no signal, no warning. You slam the brakes. Your heart pounds. That surge of fury, it hits you hard. You feel disrespected. You feel endangered. And in an instant, the urge rises, to honk loudly, to tailgate the driver, to yell even if they can't hear a word. But stop for a second. What does that reaction actually achieve? Will slamming the horn make them realize their mistake? Will yelling restore your peace? Or are you, in fact, handing over your calm to a stranger you'll never see again? If you're not careful, that one moment can spiral. It could lead to reckless driving. You could cause a crash. You could ruin your morning, or someone else's. All because of one unguarded reaction. This is where Stoicism speaks to us most clearly. It reminds us that we cannot control what others do, but we can, and must, control how we respond. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, captured this perfectly. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Anger, in this light, is not an enemy, but a messenger. It tells us that something feels wrong, that we've been wronged, hurt, overlooked, or treated unfairly. But the key is what we do after that signal appears. When someone hurts you, is shouting back really the best option? When faced with injustice, does reacting with rage change the outcome, or just cloud your judgment? Instead of reacting on impulse, try this: pause, take a slow, conscious breath, then ask yourself, is this moment worth my peace of mind? If the answer is no, and often it is, then don't give anger what it wants. Let it rise. Acknowledge it. And let it go. This isn't weakness. This isn't surrender. This is mastery. When you understand your emotional triggers, you gain the upper hand. When you choose reflection over reaction, you protect your energy. And in protecting your energy, You protect your power. Silence is a strategy, not a sign of defeat. There's a myth floating around, that silence means submission. That not reacting makes you weak. That if you don't raise your voice, you'll be ignored or disrespected. But Stoicism flips this idea on its head. In truth, it takes incredible discipline to stay calm when provoked. Anyone can explode. Anyone can shout. But it takes a strong person to remain composed when the world seems determined to shake you. The person who loses their temper the fastest, they're not strong. They're unstable. The one who stands in the center of conflict with clarity and calm, that's the real force to be reckoned with. Let's go deeper. Imagine someone shouts at you, perhaps in a heated meeting, or in a personal argument. Your natural instinct is to defend yourself, to raise your voice in return, to match their energy. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you meet fire not with more fire, but with water? You neutralize the chaos. You step out of the emotional trap. You shift the power back to your side, because now you're responding with thought, not impulse. People expect emotional reactions. When they don't get one, they feel exposed. It throws them off balance. They see that their anger didn't provoke you, and that gives you the advantage. This is why calmness is not weakness, it's strength. Calmness is power in disguise. Society often confuses noise with power. The loudest person in the room is seen as the leader. The angriest in a debate is viewed as the most passionate. The one who reacts first appears the most dominant. But this perception is shallow. True strength reveals itself in restraint. When someone tries to insult or provoke you and you do not flinch, that's strength. When chaos surrounds you but you maintain your clarity, that's strength. When you hold your peace not out of fear but out of wisdom, that is Stoic power in action. Calmness doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't fall apart. It's a choice, made again and again, to stand firm, no matter what's thrown your way. In the next chapter, we'll explore why this calm, grounded presence is often misunderstood, and why silence, in a world full of noise, might just be your greatest weapon. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the most powerful one there. Previously, we explored how true strength lies not in explosive reactions, but in the calm control of one's emotions. That silence and composure, far from being signs of weakness, are proof of inner mastery. Now, let's go one step further and see how this inner calm gives you power, not just in personal moments of stress, but in some of life's most intense challenges. 3. The power of self-control. Remaining calm is real strength. One of the greatest freedoms in life is the ability to not let others dictate how you feel. When you reach a point where external chaos no longer disturbs your inner peace, that's not just calmness. That's power. Imagine yourself in a high-stakes meeting. The atmosphere is tense. The discussion sharp. You're explaining a key idea, one you've thought through carefully. Then, suddenly, a colleague, perhaps out of insecurity or a desire to dominate, cuts you off and harshly criticizes your point in front of everyone. The room falls silent. Every pair of eyes turns toward you. In that moment, everything hinges on what you do next. You have two options. The first, react instinctively, retaliate with the same energy, defend yourself in a sharp, emotional tone, turning the room into a verbal battleground. The second, pause. Take a breath. Maintain eye contact. And respond. Not with emotion, but with calm logic and clarity. Which response carries more weight? If you choose the first, things escalate. The meeting devolves into personal tension. People stop listening to ideas and start watching a drama unfold. But if you choose the second, your calmness becomes disarming. You demonstrate emotional intelligence. You earn quiet respect. And most importantly, you stay in control, not just of yourself, but of the entire room. This is what self-control looks like. It's not submission. It's strength dressed in silence. Gandhi, calmness that shook an empire. Perhaps no one embodies this truth more than Mahatma Gandhi. Under the brutal rule of the British Empire, Gandhi chose a path most considered weak: non-violence. Through ahimsa, the principle of not causing harm, and satyagraha, the insistence on truth, he led millions in peaceful resistance. One of the most powerful examples, the Salt March of 1930. The British had imposed a tax on salt, something as basic and essential as water. Gandhi responded not with riots or war, but with a 380-kilometer walk. He and his followers traveled from Sabarmati to Dandi, unarmed, in silence, to make salt from the sea. They didn't yell. They didn't fight. They just walked. But that march shook the foundations of an empire. British officers, feeling threatened, responded with violence. Gandhi and his people did not strike back. They remained calm. They endured. And the world took notice. This was not weakness. This was willpower in its highest form. Through self-control, Gandhi proved a timeless truth. True power is not about what you can destroy, it's about what you can endure without being broken. Don't let aggression control the narrative. We often think those who shout the loudest are the strongest, but it's a lie. In reality, those who overreact, who threaten, who rage uncontrollably, are simply showing you their weakness. They are ruled by their emotions, incapable of mastering themselves. So they try to control others. But here's the twist: when you don't react as expected, when you don't match their anger, their power evaporates. You take away the fuel. You show them that they cannot touch your calm. In that stillness, you hold a mirror up to their chaos. And that, more than any confrontation, is what disarms them. Dignity in the storm. Staying calm isn't just a strategy, it's a form of dignity. It says, I know who I am. I don't need to prove it with noise. The world might try to drag you into its mess, to bait you into reacting. But the moment you respond with composure, you make a powerful statement: you don't get to decide how I feel. I do. A truly strong person doesn't need to shout to be heard. They don't need to dominate a room to have influence. Their presence speaks for them. Their silence is their strength. When you master yourself, you become unshakable. And once that happens, no one can use your emotions against you, because in the end, real strength doesn't come from how loud you are, it comes from how deeply rooted you are in yourself. 4. Life is unfair, but that doesn't matter. Now, let's face another reality: life is not fair. It never was. And it never will be. You might pour your heart and soul into a project at work, only to see a less committed colleague get the promotion. You may treat people with kindness, only to be met with betrayal or indifference. These situations sting. They feel unjust. And they are. But here's where Stoicism shines brightest. It doesn't ask you to pretend the unfairness doesn't exist. It teaches you how to rise above it. You can't control the world. You can't stop unfair outcomes. But you can choose your reaction to them. And that choice, the one thing you truly control, changes everything. A powerful example, Nick Vujicic. Consider the life of Nick Vujicic. Born with a rare condition called tetramelia syndrome, Nick entered this world with no arms and no legs. For most people, that would seem like the ultimate misfortune, a reason to give up. But Nick didn't surrender. He didn't let his circumstances define his future. Instead, he became a speaker, a motivator, and a symbol of what it means to live without limits. Can you imagine the strength it takes to face the world every day with such profound limitations, and still find joy, purpose, and confidence? That's Stoic strength in action. In the last section, we reflected on how calmness, even in the face of deep injustice, is not a sign of surrender but of unshakable strength. And now, we meet a man who embodies this truth in the most powerful way imaginable. 4. How you face your struggles is more powerful than the struggles themselves. There was a time when Nick Vujicic wanted to end his life. Born with tetramelia syndrome, Nick came into the world with no arms and no legs, a physical reality that most would consider unbearable. His early years were filled with overwhelming struggles, helplessness, isolation, and a deep sense of despair. As a child, he couldn't brush his own teeth, couldn't dress himself, couldn't even move independently. Imagine the emotional toll of simply not being able to do what everyone else takes for granted. For a while, he saw himself as a prisoner in a body that failed him. And at his lowest point, he believed that life had nothing more to offer. But then came a shift, not in his body, not in his surroundings, but in his mindset. Nick realized something profound. If he couldn't change his fate, he could change how he responded to it. And from that moment, everything began to transform. He taught himself to do the unthinkable. He learned to brush his teeth, to write, to swim, to kick a soccer ball with the momentum of his small torso. Over time, he achieved a level of independence that most people, even those with full physical abilities, struggle to master. But it didn't stop there. Nick didn't just survive. He began to thrive. He became a global motivational speaker, traveling the world to share his story and inspire millions. People look at him and see a man with no limbs, and yet, what they walk away remembering is his laughter, his energy, his strength of spirit. Nick has no arms, no legs. But what he does have is an unbreakable will, the kind of spirit that moves nations. Stoicism in action: control the inner, accept the outer. Nick Vujicic's life is the clearest example of Stoic philosophy in action. Stoicism teaches that while we can't control what happens to us, we can absolutely control what happens within us. That real power doesn't come from dominating others, it comes from mastering ourselves. You can't always control life's storms, but you can choose how to stand in the rain. So imagine, you're caught in a terrible storm. The wind is howling. The rain is relentless. You have two choices: you can scream at the sky, curse the clouds, and ask why me, or you can find shelter. You can breathe, and you can use the storm as a space to reflect, to grow, and to build strength from the inside out. Those who constantly feel victimized by life, who live in a cycle of anger, blame, and resentment, will always be at the mercy of their emotions. But those who understand Stoicism, who embrace the idea that external events don't define us, they cannot be broken, because they choose response over reaction. They choose resilience over resistance. How to apply this mindset to your life? So what does this mean for us, in practical, everyday terms? Let's start with a simple question. When something unfair happens to you, does getting angry or complaining change anything? Take a moment to be honest with yourself. If your answer is no, and often it is, then what purpose does the anger serve? Stoicism teaches us that energy is precious. Don't waste it trying to control what you can't. Instead, use it to master what you can. Improve your skills, refine your thoughts, strengthen your emotional balance. The world might not be fair. People might not treat you how you deserve. But those things don't get to decide your future. You do. Will you let injustice break you, or will you use it as fuel to become stronger, wiser, and more grounded? The decision is yours, and it's the most important one you'll ever make. A quick pause, and a small favor. Before we dive into the next insight, let me ask you for a small favor. If you've found even a bit of inspiration so far, and if you're nodding, smiling, or simply feeling a little clearer in your mind, please hit that like button. And if you haven't yet, take a second to subscribe to this channel. Why? Because when you like and subscribe, you help tell YouTube that this content matters. And that helps us reach others, people who, just like you, are searching for strength, peace, and direction in a chaotic world. Let's spread this message. Let's build a community of calm, mindful warriors, together. 5. Losing control is a choice, not a destiny. Now, take a moment to reflect. Have you recently lost your temper? Maybe someone insulted you. Maybe your plans fell apart. Maybe a bad day sent you spiraling. But here's a tough question. Did you truly lose control, or did you choose not to hold it? Let's explore that deeper in the next section, because what you'll soon realize is that emotional control isn't something that happens to you, it's something you choose, moment by moment. We ended the last section with a powerful truth. Losing control is not something others do to you, it's something you choose. Often without realizing. And once you understand that, you begin to see calmness not just as an ideal, but as a personal responsibility. 5. Emotional control is a choice, not a reaction. There's a simple story that perfectly illustrates this wisdom. One day, on a packed commuter train, a young man accidentally stepped on an elderly gentleman's foot. He quickly turned and apologized. The old man didn't raise his voice. He didn't scowl. He didn't even look irritated. He simply nodded, accepted the apology, and went back to reading his book. Another passenger nearby, surprised by the old man's indifference, leaned in and asked, "Why aren't you upset? If it were me, I'd have scolded him." The old man smiled gently and said, "He didn't do it on purpose. And I don't want to waste my time being angry. My anger won't ease the pain in my foot. It would only burden my mind." This short moment reveals a long-standing truth. When we learn to let go, we also learn to protect our peace. So, what's the lesson here? Most people believe that they must react when faced with a negative situation. That frustration, irritation, or even rage is automatic, that it's just how we are. But Stoicism teaches us otherwise. It teaches us that emotions are not external forces crashing over us like waves. They are internal responses born from our own interpretations. Think about it. Two people witness the same event, say, someone cutting the line at a grocery store. One sees it as an offense, an attack on personal dignity, and immediately becomes furious. The other sees it as a mild inconvenience, maybe even an opportunity to test their patience, and lets it go. Same event, different meaning, different emotional result. So how can we train our minds to stay calm, especially in moments that trigger us? Step 1, recognize that you always have a choice. The first and most powerful step is simple, though not always easy. Whenever a negative emotion arises, pause and ask yourself, will this reaction actually help the situation? If the answer is no, then why give it your energy? Your emotions are not commands. They're signals. You don't have to act on every impulse. You don't have to react to every offense. Sometimes, silence is louder than 1,000 words. A calm presence, especially when others expect a reaction, is more unsettling and more effective than any outburst. Step 2, redirect your thoughts. When you notice your thoughts spiraling into anger, frustration, or anxiety, gently bring them back. Remind yourself, I cannot control what others do, but I can always control what I do. This doesn't mean you should tolerate abuse or injustice. It doesn't mean being passive. What it means is that you act with intention, not emotion. Your goal is not to be unaffected. Your goal is to respond with clarity, not be driven by chaos. You stand up for yourself when necessary, but you do it with grace, not fury. Step 3, understand that true strength is silent. In a world that glorifies loud opinions, instant comebacks, and aggressive confidence, it's easy to forget that the strongest person in the room is often the one who speaks the least and listens the most. Real strength doesn't scream. It doesn't need to prove itself. It is calm, centered, and unshaken, even when the world around it is burning. When you reach that level of inner peace, you realize that nothing outside of you can truly disturb your balance unless you allow it. And this is not just a poetic ideal. It's a core teaching of Stoicism. You cannot control the world, but you can absolutely control how you see it, and how you carry yourself through it. 6. Don't get stuck in the past or the future. Another key Stoic principle builds on this emotional mastery, learning to live in the present moment. Have you ever spent hours replaying a mistake you made last week, or lost sleep worrying about something that might happen next month? This is how most people live. Or more accurately, this is how most people fail to live. Because when your mind is trapped between two things you can't touch, the past and the future, you miss the only thing you can control, the present. If you want to train your mind to stay calm, you must break free from this mental prison. The wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the most respected Stoic thinkers, once wrote, "Man lives only in the present, in this fleeting instant. All the rest of his life is either past and gone or not yet revealed." It sounds simple, but this is one of the deepest truths of Stoicism. When you worry about the future, you're imagining problems that haven't even occurred. When you obsess over the past, you're suffering twice, once from the event, and again from the memory of it. But the present is alive. It's where you can take action, where you can make a choice, where calmness lives. How to practice present moment awareness. You don't need to sit on a mountaintop or meditate for hours to live in the now. Start small. Notice your breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Pay attention to the sounds around you. When your thoughts drift, gently bring them back, again and again. This is mindfulness, a practice that ancient Stoics embraced long before modern science gave it a name. Each time you return your attention to the present moment, you reclaim a little more power over your mind. The Novak Djokovic story. Take, for example, Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest tennis champions of our time. Early in his career, Djokovic admitted he used to obsess over past losses, and worry about the outcome of future matches. These thoughts distracted him, made him anxious, and caused him to underperform in critical moments. Everything changed when he began training his mind to focus on one point at a time. One serve, one volley, one breath. By anchoring himself in the present, Djokovic not only gained emotional control, he became a master of consistency. And it's this mental discipline that elevated him from a great player to a legend. Previously, we explored how mastering the present moment, like Novak Djokovic does on the court, is the key to staying grounded and composed. But this skill goes far beyond sports or isolated moments. In truth, it becomes your anchor in the chaos of life itself. 6. Life is chaotic, but calmness lies within you. Life rarely goes according to plan. You might wake up feeling hopeful, energized, ready to take on the day. But within minutes, everything can shift. A stressful message pops up. A heated argument erupts. A phone call brings unexpected bad news. Suddenly, the peaceful morning turns into a battlefield of emotions. That's the nature of life, unpredictable, messy, and often out of our control. But here's what you must remember: your inner world doesn't have to mirror the outer one. You can't always control what happens around you, but you can always control how you respond. And in that truth lies your greatest strength. Have you ever noticed how powerful calmness becomes in moments of tension? When a room is full of panic, the calmest person is often the one people look to for guidance. When everyone else is caught in anxiety, the one who remains still seems unshakable, almost untouchable. That's not magic. That's mindset. That's Stoicism. It's the discipline of mastering your own reactions. Power in the pause. Picture this: you're driving down a crowded street. You're careful, focused, and then, out of nowhere, a reckless driver cuts you off, forcing you to slam your brakes. In that moment, you feel it, the rush of blood, the spike of adrenaline, the pull toward outrage. You might feel like honking the horn, yelling, gesturing, letting the other driver know what they've done. But stop. Ask yourself, will that reaction fix anything? Will it make you feel better? Or will it just flood your body with more stress, more anger, more noise? Now imagine another path. The same situation happens. But instead of reacting, you breathe. You exhale. You remind yourself, this isn't worth my peace. You refocus on the road. You keep driving, with calm hands, steady breath, and clear thoughts. That's the difference. In the first scenario, you lose control to the moment. In the second, you take control from the moment. Everyday chaos, everyday calm. Life will always test you, not with grand disasters, but with daily annoyances. A co-worker throws unfair blame on you. A friend cancels plans last minute. A family member says something hurtful. A stranger is rude without cause. In each of these moments, you stand at a crossroads. You can either let your emotions dictate your response, Or you can choose calmness, not because the situation deserves it, but because you do. When you explode in anger or frustration, you hand your power to the world. But when you remain calm, you claim it back. Calmness is not weakness, it's mastery. Sometimes, when you stay silent in the face of conflict, others will think you're weak, passive, even afraid. But the truth is the exact opposite. Staying calm takes far more strength than raising your voice. Remaining silent when provoked demands far more discipline than lashing out. Here's why. The angry person wants a reaction. The anxious person wants company in their panic. But when you choose not to respond, when you choose stillness over chaos, you disarm them. They're left to confront their own energy. And in that mirror, they often see their mistake. The power of emotional restraint. Let's take a more familiar example, a family argument. Someone says something that hits a nerve. You feel your face flush. Your chest tightens. A dozen rebuttals rise to your lips. You want to speak, to defend yourself, to correct them, to win. But instead, you pause, you say nothing. Why? Because you know that reacting emotionally won't resolve anything. You know that true strength is sometimes found not in what you say, but in what you don't. And in that silence, something shifts. Maybe the other person reflects. Maybe the tension deflates. Maybe nothing changes on the outside. But inside, you have just proven to yourself that you are in charge. Victory isn't in the last word, it's in self-control. The world tells us that the winner is the one who gets the last word. But real victory lies elsewhere. It lies in who maintains control of their mind, especially when provoked. That's not easy. It takes awareness, discipline, practice. But over time, your ability to stay grounded becomes second nature. So when chaos strikes, and it will, ask yourself, do I want to be dragged into someone else's emotional storm? Or will I choose my peace? Because calmness isn't avoidance. It's not denial. It's self-respect. It's knowing your energy is too valuable to waste on things that don't deserve it. When life tries to shake you, stand firm. Let's be honest, life will challenge you. There will be moments when everything seems to fall apart, when people betray you, when plans collapse, when emotions run high. But those moments don't define you. Your reaction does. When others yell, you breathe. When others panic, you steady yourself. When others throw fuel on the fire, you hold the water. And in doing so, you protect the one thing no one can ever take from you, your peace. So the next time a storm rises, ask yourself this: will I let it carry me away, or will I become the calm in the middle of it? The answer lies not in the sky, it lies in you. In the last section, we talked about how calmness, even in life's most chaotic moments, is not weakness, but an act of quiet strength. But what happens when life doesn't just challenge your peace? It challenges your identity. That's where the real test begins. 7. You are not your circumstances, you are how you respond to them. Imagine a young boy, born into deep poverty. From the moment he can understand words, he hears whispers, some spoken aloud, others implied through glances and pitying stares. This boy will never become anything. He's stuck. His future is already written. Society looks at him not with expectation, but with sympathy. People don't ask if he'll struggle. They assume he will. They see his background as a life sentence, an invisible wall he will never climb over. And at first, the boy believes them. Why wouldn't he? When every voice around you tells you something enough times, it starts to sound like truth. He begins to think, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not meant for more than this. Maybe I don't get to dream. But then one day, something shifts, not outside of him, inside. He has a realization. Circumstances are just a setting, not a sentence. They're the stage, not the script. And no matter where he started, he could still choose how the story unfolds. The turning point, a shift in perspective. This boy, let's call him younger you, older me, or anyone who's ever felt stuck, begins to question the assumptions that shaped his thinking. He realizes that if he keeps accepting the limits others put on him, then he's the one choosing to stay small. That poverty, hardship, or misfortune only have lasting power if he believes they define him. And from that moment forward, things begin to change. Not because of luck, not because of help from someone powerful, but because of persistence. He starts learning, he starts training, he seeks opportunities, even small ones. And with each step forward, his belief in himself grows stronger than the opinions of those around him. This is the Stoic way. Stoicism in action. Respond. Don't resent. Stoicism doesn't teach us to pretend that injustice or misfortune don't exist. It teaches us that we don't have to be ruled by them. As Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Think about that for a moment. It means your response is your power, not your past, not your environment, not your struggle. When life gets hard, you have two options: let the difficulty define you, blaming your situation, your background, your limitations, or define yourself by how you rise, how you think, and how you respond to adversity. Those who give in to their circumstances feel helpless. They believe life is happening to them, and they have no say. But those who embrace Stoic wisdom look at the same circumstances and think, "I may not like this, but I still have a choice." It's not magic, it's mindset. Returning to the story of the poor boy, what made him change wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a sudden windfall or someone rescuing him. It was a new belief. I am not my circumstances. I am my thoughts, my choices, my efforts, and my reactions. And with that shift in mindset, the limits others placed on him began to crumble. He no longer waited for someone to give him permission to grow. He gave it to himself. And over time, he succeeded, not by fitting someone else's definition of success, but by becoming stronger, more resilient, and more fulfilled than anyone ever expected. You are not what you're going through. Maybe today, you're facing a difficult situation. Maybe you were born into hardship. Maybe your past still haunts you. Maybe you're struggling with something invisible to others but heavy on your soul. But here's what you need to know. You are not your pain. You are not your environment. You are not the labels others give you. You are the one who decides what comes next. To respond with calmness, even when the world tries to provoke you. To move forward, even when the path is full of obstacles. To stay grounded, even when your future feels uncertain. That's Stoicism in practice. The voice that matters most. When someone tries to limit you, to tell you that you'll never make it or this is just how it is, you don't need to shout back. You don't need to fight with them. Just stay calm. And in that calm, remind yourself, I am not defined by what they think. I am defined by what I do. You see, the world will always try to shape you. But when you stand firm in your own identity, forged through reflection, strengthened through trials, you become unshakable. Calmness is a learned skill. Calmness is not an automatic gift. It's not something you're born with. It's a skill, developed through repetition, through self-awareness, and through courage. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they didn't live easy lives, but they trained their minds to find peace. No matter what storms came their way, you can do the same. When you learn to respond, not react, you take control of your life. When you stay calm, you decide how the world affects you, not the other way around. Powerful silence, a steady mind, the ability to pause when others panic. These are the signs of a person who is not mastered by the world, but has mastered themselves. What about you? So, how about your daily life? Have you ever practiced stoic calmness, even in a heated moment? Are there situations where you find it hard to stay composed?